Hey gang, Ronan here. Welcome on back to the Retrocade, and welcome to another edition of Suckerpunch Sunday, where we hit the Wayback Machine and visit a classic fighting or fighting platform-based game from the 3rd, 4th, and 5th, and 6th generation. And for this week, we are going to go back to 1995 and take a look at a game that really, in a lot of ways, sparked a real boom in what we would get to see over the next 10 to 15 years on the fighting game front. We're going to play Marvel Superheroes. And we're going to play this for a couple reasons. One, we haven't yet played a Marvel-themed fighting game on this series so far. And two, it is also to commemorate the passing of the great Marvel comic book artist John Romita Sr., who passed away this last week at the ripe old age of 93, which in my book qualifies as a life very well lived. And among John Romita Sr.'s contributions to Marvel fandom was in his work in Amazing Spider-Man, creating Mary Jane Watson and the Punisher, as well as Luke Cage. But he is probably best known for giving the iconography and the look to one of the most famous characters in all of comic books, bar none, that being Wolverine. So what we're going to do over the course of the next half an hour is we're just going to give this game a try and see how well it's aged for the PS1. And as you can see, we get 10 characters we can choose from. We have Hulk, we have Wolverine, Spider-Man, Magneto, Juggernaut, Iron Man, Psylocke, Captain America, and I believe Blackheart. And I'm not entirely sure who the last one is, that Cthulhu-looking one, but I will get that information to you presently. That would be Shumagarath is who that is. And I'm going to go with Wolverine, and I'm going to play on normal. Now, this game, if you do not know, is based off of the Infinity Gauntlet saga, which, of course, was huge in the MCU over the last 15 years. And this game was developed by Capcom in association with Virgin Interactive for the European audiences. And the thing that jumps out at me right away is this is a game that if you like a good fighting game and you like the fluidity in your characters, this is the one you want. Because it is a game that I very much feel like when I'm playing it is right up there with the best Street Fighter 2 games and the best Mortal Kombat games and the best Samurai Showdown games as far as ease of play and the way you can stack moves. Now, this wasn't the first fighting game that Marvel came out with in the 90s. This is actually the sequel to X-Men Children of the Atom, which was done in a very similar art style. Ooh, is Peter just pounding me there? And I can vividly remember in my local arcades and anywhere that had an arcade cabinet, if they had X-Men Children of the Atom or they had Marvel Superheroes, then kids were going to be wrapped around this thing, popping in quarters all day long. And it was really a case of when we reached the saturation point with Street Fighter 2, right around the time we have the new challengers. Ooh, Peter beat me. And they brought in Fei Long and a lot of the other minor characters after the success, obviously, of the original versions of the game. Kids were looking for something new. And that's not to say that Street Fighter 2 in its... Ooh, almost tried to pull the super move off there. That Street Fighter 2 in any iteration was bad. I mean, it's a classic game for a reason. And for very good reason. However, kids being kids and always looking for something new and exciting to, take their time and their money, coming up with something like this, especially considering in the 90s we still got the benefit of afternoon cartoons. Oh, and we got him with a Berserk Barrage. Super finish KO. And with just enough life to spare at that. this was perfect for us because you still had X-Men on afternoons on Fox. You had Spider-Man as well. We were starting to see Iron Man a little bit more. So it was natural for Marvel to want to capitalize in this ever-expanding medium by coming out with a good fighting game. And really, I mean, the first big thing that jumps out at me after the ease of the controls and the fluidity of the characters is the art style. And the art style is fantastic. It's something for a 2D game that is now, near as makes no difference, 20 years old. It's still extremely fresh. Ooh, we got the boost from the Infinity Gem. Hopefully this will take Tony down a peg. In Logan's purview, he's essentially having to act like a can opener. Oof. We've got to stay out of the way of that repulsor. Oh, and instead he just picked me up and slammed me into the wall. So the main antagonist in this game, because it is all built around the idea of the Infinity Gems, is of course Thanos. And the controls in this game, if you are familiar with a Capcom fighting system at all, should be quite old hat. You have your light hits, your medium hits, and your heavy hits. You go up on the joystick to jump. You can go backwards to block. We are just ripping Tony to shreds here. And down goes Iron Man. And even the voice work in this game, for as limited as it is just really good. And the fact that this came out on the PS1 and then was later released on the Xbox, it was on the Saturn, it was on the Xbox 360, and on the PlayStation 3, belies its overall ranking, which actually isn't as high as you may expect. Its aggregate score is 69% for the PlayStation version and actually 77% for the Saturn version, which doesn't make a whole lot of sense considering the Saturn, by comparison to PlayStation, was a much more maligned and less utilized system. Alright, Juggernaut, anytime you feel like not stomping me to death. There we go. Ugh. Man, Kane, you are just not having it. Now, obviously, the arcade version of this game is considered far and away the superior version of it. But then trying to, spending the money to get an arcade cabinet to be able to play it, that's not an investment the average gamer can make, let alone being able to find a board that would let you do it. Oh, this is not going to end well. Ow. Yeah, Juggernaut is a bad, bad dude for good reason. But, however, the PlayStation version was ranked 4 stars out of 5 by Computers and Video Games Monthly. EGM only gave it a 28.5 out of 40. Famitsu only gave it a 28 out of 40. GameSpot gave it 5.6 out of 10, and IGN only gave it 7 out of 10. Whereas the Saturn version across the board got much higher marks. I'm going to try turbo this time. Ow. All right. When in doubt, grab and poke. Now, among the positive reviews that came about for this game, as I'm trying my... Uh-oh. I do not need Juggernaut getting a life boost. Ouch. Was that the loads of combo attacks, along with the animation and the fluidity of the controls, made this a very appealing game, and I completely agree with it. Again, unlike most fighting games I've played so far, this one, even while I do have experience playing these sorts of games, I don't have to know where every quarter turn comes from. Oh, this is not going to go well. Ow. As we get splattered again. But they also mentioned that how at a time where we were getting much more 3D polygon-based fighting games, going back and playing this way in a conventional 2D setup was actually really refreshing, and because they did it so well... Alright, let's change this up. I'm going to try Cap against Juggernaut. Or, no, we're going to play against... Oh, we're going to play against Hulk. This isn't going to go much better. But the overall consensus is that graphically, this game got far more right than it did wrong. Even when you look at the change of engines, I mean, we're fighting on a carousel here. Oh, that's gonna hurt the neck a bit. Be gentle, Bruce. But the difference being with the Saturn was that they actually said that visually the Saturn delivered a better overall package than the PlayStation version. Which again is surprising also because fighting games were never really the big thing for Sega. Their bread and butter was more in sports games and more action-adventure type games. Which is not to say that those games weren't good and that Sega didn't have the capability of doing that. But by comparison to, like, Nintendo, especially at the time, each console played to its strengths. Okay, didn't work with them. Alright, Tin Man, let me see what we can do. Oh, and we moved back one. So now that we've beaten Spidey, still. Now, one of the things I've often said in this series when it came to video games based on comic characters, as Tony gets throttled, whew, is how balanced it is. And that was most evident in The Death and Return of Superman. How if they had made Superman even 10% stronger and 10% tougher, it would have changed the game enough where you would have felt more like you were playing Superman as opposed to a guy wearing a Superman outfit. The benefit of a game like this is that because they have to make it more balanced, where you're dealing with characters who are immensely strong, like the Hulk and Juggernaut, you also have characters like Wolverine, who can be a combination of speed and strength. You have Psylocke, who is obviously stronger, but can hit, or not as strong, I should say, but can hit a lot more based on that. And you've got to find that proper ratio, and that's something that Capcom did really, really well. And by this point in their history, they had obviously had a lot of practice in how they balanced out all the characters in Street Fighter 2. Well, one much of a superior attack, considering how much we got quickly dismantled by Bruce. Alright, well, now that we're back to Wolverine, now we're back to the Juggernaut again. So, depending on the characters that you play against, that will change around how many more you have left to go. Now let's see if we can't get by this brute. The lingering nag that they had against this version for the PS1 was apparently the PlayStation's processor at the time was not really capable of loading and operating without a serious case of lag dropping in every so often. Ouch! There we go. But we're almost already dead. I just looked up our life bar and I'm like, oh, he sneezes wrong and we are toast. Uh-oh. And then he just finally picks us up and spikes us into the ground and says, that's it. So according to Electronics Gaming Monthly, get my title name right, they say, quote, although it's identical to the Saturn version in features, the PlayStation game loses serious points for its unplayability. Which makes me wonder what they were basing that on at the time. And again, bearing in mind, this was now 30 years ago, just about. Obviously, I've hit a point in the game where the difficulty curve is gone up a tad. But in terms of it impacting the replayability of this game for me, I can't see that. There we go. That time we took him down pretty handily. Which means don't get cocky, Logan. It won't take much for him to turn around and just completely reduce us to paste. There we go. We took him down. Good. We need to move on here. Now, in 2013, Geek Magazine ranked Marvel Superheroes as the 16th best Marvel video game. And then Complex Magazine had two critics who included in their list the 25 best 2D fighting games of all time. stating that the Infinity Gauntlet collection ability in this was a big difference maker for the title, and as a result, it still feels fresh today, end quote. That was 10 years ago that they made that critique, and I genuinely don't see any argument against that. Having the Infinity Gems can give you a heck of a help in a pinch. I mean, I got 4 of them right now. The only thing, and it gives you reason. Uh-oh, as I just lost one. But we're catching him in midair. We're skewering him. Ow. Ow. And we just got ignited. And it does not matter because we took him down. The catch is hanging onto the Infinity Stones and then being able to activate them so you get the benefit of having them. Ow. Zap. Ow. Wow, that was cold. But now all the stones have been used. So now it's mano a mano. Zap. Oof. Okay, Blackheart's no joke. Now, it was because this game proved to be as successful as it was, both at the arcades and on consoles, and because Capcom had the license to it, that we were able to, within a year, get X-Men vs. Street Fighter, which then inevitably led to the Marvel vs. Capcom series. Now, while this one came out on the PS1 in '95, X-Men vs. Street Fighter didn't hit until 1998. And of course, it was at that point ported to both the Saturn and the PS1. But to think that at the time, Capcom was riding such a wave, and you have to remember that Marvel was not the monolith that it has become now in the advent of the MCU. Marvel in the 90s as a company was still really struggling. They had declared bankruptcy in the early 90s. There was debate about whether or not both Marvel and DC were going to be able to make it into the internet era, really. You compound that with the reality that they had to contend against Image Comics, who were the new hip kids on the block. You have the comics bust of the 90s as well, because Marvel, like every other comic company, had banked on the possibility that people were going to see comics as investment items, simply because rarer, older comics, which had been made in far less supply, were a lot rarer and worth a lot more money. Oh! He was dead. He had no life on him whatsoever. I mean, his health bar is empty. And he manages to pull out Armageddon and beat me. All right. Enough of this mucking around here. But having been a teenager during that time frame and being very much into comics of all sorts and realizing that, yeah, that was the question very much on a lot of fans' minds was whether or not we were going to see Marvel make it to the 21st century. And DC, by a lot of respects, wasn't that much further behind them. You could make the argument that were it not for the Death of Superman storyline, which again we had revisited already in a previous episode of this series. Oh, Eric's not going to be happy with me after that. Ouch. There we go. Uh-oh. Ow. Oh, we got him. Whoo! That was close. But throughout the mid to late 90s, Marvel started making a lot of really, really smart decisions. And one of them, I think it can be easily stated, was partnering with Capcom to start making these sorts of games. Oh, I do not need Magneto going faster. Oh, but we got him anyway. But as for John Romita Sr., he actually got his start with Marvel when it was still known as Timely Comics back in the 40s. And then joined up starting to create issues of Spider-Man in the mid to late 60s. After Steve Ditko left. And again, he is the reason why we got characters like Mary Jane Watson. And then in 1973, he helped create, in an issue of The Incredible Hulk, he happened to give us a character out of Canada that we know as Wolverine. And the rest is history. And you also can't deny the fact that he had a big role in creating the Punisher. And the Punisher, like him or hate him, is very much like Wolvie in that the iconography is absolutely unmistakable. Oh, we got him. In his, I don't want to say necessarily his later years, but by the mid-70s, he was actually the art director for Marvel. And his son, John Romita Jr., became a very prominent Marvel artist himself. I actually have quite a few Marvel comics from the 90s and the aughts that John Romita drew. His art style as a whole isn't quite my thing, and I don't say that in any respect that it's bad, but if you're a comics reader like me, then you start making your favorites. Like, I am very much a Jim Lee fan. I love his drawing style. John Romita and John Romita Jr. have a similar art style, and for what they do, it can be very, very effective. But would I put him on my list of my absolute favorite comic book artists? Probably not. Ooh, we had to fight Doom. Well, we are just past half an hour here, but I'm treating this similar to what we did last week with Mighty Morphin Power Rangers, the Fighting Edition. In that, if we can actually beat this game in one go, why not? The absolute last thing I want to do is give Victor Von Doom any of the Infinity Stones. But if we can get to Thanos and actually beat him, which may not look like it's going to happen at this point, because Doom is very much seeming to be like the M. Bison of this game. And that if he can pull out any stops to keep himself from losing, he will do that. Ooh, that hurt. And he tore us apart. Alright, well, since that is a legitimate loss, and even though we are close to the end of this, we are at 33 minutes, so we're going to call this one good. But this, everybody, is Marvel Superheroes for the PlayStation 1. You can also find it on the Sega Saturn. If you want to try it out on an emulator, I am again using the PCSXR emulator to run these games. And as you can see, the lag time that they had mentioned in their critiques from days of yore aren't there. This game runs really, really fluently. The action is wholly kinetic. And it is a really good, solid 2D fighting game. It is everything it says it wants to be and everything it claims to be. So if you're looking for a good retro-style fighting game, by all means, give this one a go, because it's aged really, really well in my view, both graphically and mechanically. And if you're looking to build a collection of really good 2D or 3D fighting games, I don't see any reason why this one wouldn't be part of it. So, if you've enjoyed this Suckerpunch Sunday, and I do hope you have, best way you can show it, hit that like button, subscribe to the channel if you are new, and ring the bell to be notified of the latest content. Hope you did enjoy Sports Saturday yesterday, where we played Baseball Stars 2 for the Neo-Geo and notched another win in our belt. That was a lot of fun. As I said, we are in the process of finalizing our next playthrough. That won't be happening this week just because of work and other stuff, so it will be coming soon. So keep an ear to the ground and watch this space for when that will be starting up, I'm hoping, next week. Follow us on Instagram at Ronin's Retrocade. Help spread the word about us so we can hit our goal of 100 subscribers as soon as we can. That way we can unlock the YouTube customization algorithm and make this channel bigger and better. And if there is a game you would like to see us feature from the Nintendo Entertainment System, the Super Nintendo, Sega Master System, Sega Genesis, or MegaDrive, SNK, Neo-Geo, Nintendo 64, PlayStation 1, or PlayStation 2, leave it in the comments below or drop me a line on Instagram. It can be any game from these consoles that you want. Again, it is all about profiling and highlighting games that you guys want to see, and it gives me a chance to explore them in a new, fresh way and give you a more up-to-date take on how well they've aged and whether or not they're games that you might want to try out again. So, as always, my name is Ronan. It's been great to spend this Sunday with you. Happy Father's Day to all the daddy gamers out there, by the way. Be safe, be well, happy gaming, and we will talk to you again soon. And until then, bye, everybody.